Hello, everyone. This is Lindsay, and I'm here with Nick and Jeremy, and I'm going to have each of you introduce yourselves momentarily. We just invite you all to come to our space today and get whatever the message is meant for you. We're going to be learning a little bit more about the two or three of us on the screen here, and whatever the energy brings, may it guide us all. Would either of you like to introduce yourselves first or share what's coming to mind?
Would you like to go, Jimmy? Or I can.
Go ahead, Nick.
Okay. So my name's Nicholas Clay. I am the founder of Being One World, a mindfulness company where I coach and help people to alleviate past wounds and traumas so that they can operate from their higher levels of consciousness. So essentially finding inner clarity and peace.
Fabulous. Thank you for sharing. Jeremy.
Yes. Thank you, Nick, for sharing that. Your mission is very uplifting, and thank you for doing all that work. My name is Jeremy Anacker, and I'm a healer. I do Reiki and transformation work with aura insights because I see auras. So, as an energy healer, it's pretty natural to detect different forms of blockages or imbalances, and I've become very proficient at giving feedback and facilitating energy fields. And I work in Madison, Wisconsin, and I have online classes as well at affinitytransformations.com.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I'm also in Madison, Wisconsin. And Nick, where are you?
Upstate New York.
Oh, okay. So we've got quite the variety here of locations. Obviously, we're all on camera, but together in spirit, regardless of location. So we had a couple of intentions before we got together today. I've known both of you for different times, some very lengthy. I met Jeremy many, many years ago in a class I attended here in Madison, and I don't think I was ready for that world at that time in my life. And I think Jeremy can share more about that. And many, many years later, I found his card and I ran into someone at the mall and they said, would you like to go to this class? And I said, oh, I didn't know he still existed. I thought the card didn't, was long lost in decades prior. And Nick and I met through a networking group. I don't know if you remember exactly which one, because I don't, online during COVID. And now I felt like the three of us should get connected, and the two of them can share a little bit more about their story and where their background is. Either one of you can go first if you would like.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. Uh, so rephrase the question. Could you repeat it one more time?
Thank you for asking. I think we were wanting to learn a little bit more about how you got into healing itself. And it sounds like, based on what I've learned from you, it's your journey has evolved over time, personally, and you've done a lot of trainings as well. And I think, as we're going through our journey, teachers come along. I think that was something you were wanting to learn. And if you want to share a little bit about your journey, that'd be great.
Yeah. So how I got to where I am today. Well, it started with getting introduced to uh, entrepreneurship and self-development, and it started in finance. And when I got offered opportunity in finance, a couple things started to happen. One, I started to learn how to learn again for the licenses that I need to study for. So that opened up a part of my mind again. And then I got introduced to self-development, which I thought was really great. I was like, oh, this is really cool, a way to invest in yourself. And then I also got introduced to networking and being around other successful people, being around positive people, being around motivation. And that all felt really good to me. And so it was really interesting. As I started networking, I call it networking up. I was looking to be around more and more successful people because the conversation gets a little different. And I wanted to be influenced by the direction in which I wanted to travel for life. And then from that experience and being in a conversation like this one and being new to reading and getting into self-development, so a lot of personal growth that I've had to get to where I am today, there was a business owner that recommended Eckhart Tolle to me, A New Earth. And when I started reading that, I saw this opportunity to release this pain that was inside of me. Little did I realize how far the rabbit hole was going to go. At the time, I thought it was going to be a much simpler process. However, what has remained true is that there is a path to release it, and it is possible. And I discovered that when I started practicing the modalities that Eckhart Tolle teaches. And there was this profound moment I had where I felt energy move inside my body. And the best way I can think to explain it was like a breath internally moved through me. And I felt it leave. And I went from a state of being aggravated to smiling and laughing. And that was a big pivot in my journey, because I felt something within me I didn't enjoy actually leave. And so at that moment, I was really curious on what more about this human system do we know about, and we, humans together, like what more information is out there. And then I got obsessed with studying and getting my hands on as much information as I could. And it was interesting because when I started this journey, I thought there was a limited amount of information. I thought like there was only a handful of Eckhart Tolle's out there. And as I grew and as I talked to more people and being in conversations with this, people would say, "Oh, have you heard of this person? Oh, have you heard of this person?" And then when you start reading the books, they reference other people as well, and you start being enlightened to these other teachers that are out there. And I discovered there's this whole world out there, and there's an abundance of it where it's just not, doesn't seem to be integrated in mainstream society. So I went down that path, got into some other courses, saw this opportunity to help people, saw a market for it, and I've always liked supporting people. So that led to me seeing an opportunity to help other people understand this information so that they can get the same benefit for themselves. And that led me to starting the company and to start coaching and duplicate with others the process that I was finding and the healing that I was finding that I was able to lead myself through.
And what's it called? Your
Oh, the
business?
company? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Being one world. And that came from the inspiration of thinking if we all practice this in some way, shape, or form, then we would truly have a collective world, and we would be in one world instead of being divided by all these arbitrary lines and differences.
Thank you for sharing. Beautiful message.
Thank you.
Yeah, I loved hearing that. The story, Nick.
Thank you.
The discovery of energetic shift inside as you work with pointers from Eckhart Tolle. I don't even know how many times I felt internal shift when I was working with Eckhart Tolle and his pointers or videos. It used to be so satisfying to listen to him, on CD back in the 90s. Now you just click, link. Man, healing with energy. Many years ago, my best friend died in a car accident, and it created a shift where I started asking big questions about life and reality, and I was already different or intuitive, so I needed to know more about things that weren't exactly just physical. I think I was already set up that way. I was an artist. So it sounds like Nick started out in a very, analytical world in business and entrepreneurship. I started out on my way to art school. So a totally different way, different pathway. So while I was going to art school, I discovered Reiki. Someone offered a free session of Reiki, and I got on the Reiki table and they put their hands on me, and I felt peace come over me. And about an hour later, all I knew was that I was peace. I lost track of my body. I just felt peace. I felt a boundless peace, and I was the peace. like one Reiki session was that. And I was totally hooked. I was totally hooked and learned more about how energy works with thought. And I did tons of seeking through Milwaukee. And I found a school on the west side of Milwaukee called the Institute of Self Awareness. Learned about Reiki, learned about thought mechanics, aura awareness, spiritual awareness, how it all works with Reiki. And then I learned about how to describe some of this stuff through quantum physics and through some different philosophers. And so I became a co-founder of that school, helped them build a curriculum, helped them facilitate in groups. And I did many little talks through Milwaukee. That was 35 years ago. So Eckhart Tolle is definitely one of the things on the list I've really benefited from working with. And I think I was really happy to work with things, well, no, a focus like Eckhart Tolle's work and a discovery attitude. Like to really try and discover where it was coming from and experience the freedom. So the emphasis on energy and knowing it's shifting. I heard you speak to that, Nick. So I was really happy to know someone's talking to the fact that energy is a reality. So I'm in the right place. Definitely in the right place. I do online classes every second Sunday of the month. Will be an online class on detangling the aura and Eckhart Tolle's pain body work helps to untangle the aura because pain drives us to control, and then we get into control issues with people. And instead of dealing with pain, we try to change the outside world. So we try and change others and pull on energy. So that's one way to frame it. That's what I would do for a tie-in to Eckhart Tolle. But I think the topic we might be working on is energy healing or the gift of presence as a way to heal. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I love what you shared. Two things come to mind when Eckhart Tolle talked about the pain body. What got me to start looking within the pain I was carrying was the example he gave of two cars coming to an intersection. And if the pain bodies are high, there's a higher likelihood of an accident happening because unconsciously people want something negative to happen. And that's when I asked myself, well, do I want to be in a car accident? Well, no, I don't want to be. And that had me look to start doing these deeper work because then I realized, well, to some level, I realized that we can draw these negative things in to fuel our pain body. And when you talk about energy, that's been one of the more recent studies and understanding of mine as I have gone through the first two books from and you may be familiar with Barbara Ann Brennan. Are you familiar with her? And
Yep,
so
definitely.
I've
That's
learned,
definitely one of the people on the bookshelf. Definitely.
yeah. And what I loved about, I read her book, Hands of Light and Light Emerging were the first two, and then her third is Core Healing, which I haven't gotten to yet. And what I love about those books, outside of the size of them that threw me off a little bit, like a college book coming in, uh, it unpacked the energy system in a depth that I have not seen before. And it gave such a fuller understanding, as you mentioned, Jeremy, the auras and the chakra system and how that interconnects and how that system can be cleansed. And then what I'm studying now is a course that another person who I followed has added a lot of material to is for my pro consciousness health coaching is what I'm studying now. And Dr. Joe Dispenza has been a big part of putting that course together and learning about the human biofield, which is synonymous with the human energy field, which is talked about from Barbara Ann Brennan. And so I love to see how all this is tying together and how science is meeting, uh, you know, Eastern medicine and we're demystifying these aspects that once we looked in a mystical nature. And so yes, certainly energy is a big part, and I would even say that everything foundationally is energy. And just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Just like the X-rays and everything else that's outside of our visible light spectrum that's coming through us right now in this moment, we know is there, we just can't see it. It still plays an effect of our lives. So certainly happy to expand on that and also hear more from your background, Jim.
Jeremy, that reminds me of a recent talk that you had.
Well, these are all favorite authors. Joe Dispenza went to the same college as I did, Ralph the School of Enlightenment.
Nice.
He was in the first What Do You Bleep Do You Know? And then he was in the second one. And I did the Ralph the School of Enlightenment like crazy, 30 some years ago. And I felt so affirmed by those movies when they came out. I feel very affirmed by being here. I'm meeting people that know about the different dimensions of the energy self. It's a very beautiful dimension of what we are. And so is the physical body. So all these organs work together somehow in a mystery. And the energy body does the same. It's probably quite a bit more magnificent and complex than the physical body. It's super intelligence at work. There's a lattice work, there's an aura, there's an outer edge, there's different qualities of the outer edge. There's 7 main chakras, there's 150 chakras if you want to count all the little ones. There's meridians, and that's the aura anatomy. But the life force energy animates all of that and the physical body. You know something? The one thing that really, uplifts me is to think about that life force animates all of that, everything I just described, and more effortlessly. Like right now, I don't have to think about beating my heart. It's pumping blood. I don't have to think about the charges of electromagnetic energy playing through my body. I don't have to think about any of it. It's just going to do that. Can I trust it? Can I have affection for it or have appreciation for it? And I'm often just shocked. People don't have a place for. There's this life right here looking out the eyes. This is life. People are just so locked into it. That can't be something to think about. I have to pay my bills. Wait a minute. Look at this mystery looking out your eyes. You're alive. Well, that's nice, but how is that going to pay my bills? That's the kind of barrier I think I've run into over the years. Is just how do we share that it's worth something? It's valuable. What is that thing that got you to this, Lindsay?
Were you going to say something, Nick? It looked like you were going to respond.
I mean, okay. I think you should respond, Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. I was actually, as you were talking, I was thinking that the next subject would be helpful to say, if you live in 5D, how do you function in 3D? But you brought up the opposite point of people that really are stuck in the 3D world. How do you even bring other, levels of awareness to them? And I think your point is, it seems to me your question is, how did I get to this? Yes. But it sounds like through your 2 experiences, they were a little bit different. And a lot of times for people, it's through an accident. If you're not finding it on your own, life will put you on your back and say, you need to learn this lesson. And I've had multiple of those things happen. I think had a big life journey. I won't share details. But I think when I finally went to Reiki class, and you probably knew this about me before I knew about it myself, Jeremy, it had always been there. I had always had an awareness inside of me since I was very young. So when I started putting words on it, I thought, oh, that's what that is. Like there's a name for this thing that I've been experiencing my whole life and seeing different things and feeling energy. So that was really like a coming home for me. And then I think it took a lot more time to be comfortable talking about it. with peers and in public and things like that. So that's kind of, one of the first discussions we had had. I think the question for a lot of people, and myself included, is sometimes you just get sick and you need a way to heal that, or you run into continual repetitive patterns in your life that aren't healing themselves by doing what you did before, in the 3D world per se, or doing what just pays the bills. It, usually get stuck in a rut or some sort of cycle. And it's how do you break free of that? And I was going to ask you as you were speaking about what you meant by, or how do you actually disentangle the aura or untangle the aura? Because I think that's what happens is you just get stuck. Everything gets, like a bunch of ropes around you. So I know you see aura and see color. I see a lot of things. I actually see a lot of really kind of scary things sometimes. But I also see really happy things and feel really happy things when I'm doing Reiki. So sometimes it's very tangible. Like sometimes there's like ropes or snakes or metal coming out of someone's body, literally. And how did that get there and why? So a lot of times it's, you don't always need to define what the source was, but sometimes it was simply a comment from a person or a parent at a young age that bound someone to, and like a disempowering belief, got the right word for that, something that is not positive, and then they live in that cycle for many years. So I'm really big into inner child healing and going back to the source, because a lot of times we block out what the source was. So we try to heal it in this lifetime, but really it was from so long ago that if we don't ever get there, we may not actually heal it. So for me, that's been helping me a lot, is to go back to much, much younger times that I almost really forgot about in order to heal the cycles, because you wonder why. This is the 20th time I've been on this bicycle and I'm still hitting that same curb. So anyway.
Yeah, we can be tangled with ourselves, lost in a pattern, just stuck in patterning. Nick, when I say detangling an aura, what comes to mind?
Yeah, so I think back to what I learned from Hands of Light, and how these energies can, just as it sounds, only energetically. How could I think that actually Lindsay has a great representation in her background with the aurora borealis behind her. So you think of those strands just like getting tangled like a knot in a rope, and how that gets untangled. You two have much more experience in that. I have the knowledge from the readings of it. I don't have deeper understanding from practice. I do have my level 1 Reiki practitioner. However, I haven't gone further to get deep or have the hands-on experience or witness the hands-on experience to actually see that. And one of the things that fascinates me that you both have shared is your ability to see more of it, which that when I read about that and seeing the different colors, I thought to myself, well, I hope one day maybe I can see those too, and shed this another veil of reality open for myself. So I think that's pretty cool. So to answer your question, I don't know how I would describe it yet. When you ask me that, I can see it in a way in my head. I don't think I describe it well for those watching.
Wonderful. Think about, there's a person and there's an aura around the person. So it used to be like, you think about it, 3 feet off from the body. It's gotten larger generally than 3 feet. People in modern life, we've expanded our awareness. We're more open, surprisingly. Most people are generally more open. And to whatever degree I am in a better energy field, my sense of self is stronger. So if I have a strong sense of self, I'm less likely to be pulled around. Easy victims have a look on their face. Their aura is also different. It's probably smaller and it probably has more capacity to be pulled on. And also lower energies they're playing a strategy to feel good through very unhelpful dynamics. So there's so many dynamics, but you could say poor me is one. So let's say you have a poor me energy field and it's small, and they get all their energy from the attention of others. My story is so bad for me. So they're pulling in people's energies to get attention. And they do that because they don't know their sense of self. So they're stuck in a pattern. And then you have someone that comes along and sees an easy prey for intimidation. And you have someone that has a authoritarian view on a poor me. And so you have a struggle here. If you look into Barbara Brennan's work, you can find an aura picture of two strings coming out of the power center, which is the solar plexus right here. And you can see these strings coming out of the power center. And just imagine two people being able to relate. I go to my Uncle Bob the Republican. Oh, that's how you think. And I let him think like him. He does. What else do Republicans say? What else do they think about? If I have no sense of self and I can feel intimidated or upset that he thinks differently, or I can feel insecure about the world's outcomes, I can start trying to grab him and think him differently. What about the freaking environment, man? And then we can get involved and get more and more tangled. But when I'm in a state of allowing, I can share my point of view. But as soon as I start getting into trying to change another person, it starts hooking. So then from the power center, the other chakras can mingle in terms of romantic relationships after the body fluids are connected, the sexual centers are opened, that can be tangled unless it's unconditional love intention, really very much embodied in the relationship. So that's those are a few things to say about tangle. But I'd like to point at it's so simple to invest in your sense of self. Sit down and appreciate something, get your energy up, get some self Reiki, do some yoga, get quiet, sit in nature, get a sense of self. Show up to transformation classes, healing classes, study Joe Dispenza, Barbara Brennan, study my website. Invest time into your sense of self. So
and being around the energy.
You're on high quality energy. And then for me, it's learning better skills on how to deal with challenging people and own myself around them. One of my favorite techniques, and this is very next level, I think, I just have to share it. I'm not sure how many people will get it, but when somebody walks in the room with a pattern that's really strong, it could be anything, intimidation or interrogation or ridiculous excitement, which has pushiness in it. It could be anything. Life coach extraordinaire with a big flashy suit on. Hi, just holding the business card out. This is my card. Let's say that person walks in the room. If I want to stay untangled from them, I know to own and every way I'm like them. Now, if someone
That's
has
eye-opening.
Yes, if someone has any extreme presentation, intimidation, you come in like, what way am I like them? I better neutralize it right now because I will be sticky to that if I don't own that myself. Because if I see an intimidating person that walks in the room and I don't own it myself and I'm upset about that intimidator, I'm projecting. Therefore, I might do a little bit of this. You shouldn't be like that. All of a sudden, I'm in a tangled state. Happens 1/10,000th of a second. The simplest resolution is be so present with yourself. And my self-work isn't about anybody else. I'm not here to change interrogator person, poor me person, um, flashy marketing life coach. They're not my business. Let them be. Then I won't be tangled.
Sounds like you're talking about radical self-acceptance and a lot of
Yes.
humble moments there.
Yes, yes. Radical self-acceptance with a next level of conviction that I'm only seeing myself. Like whatever I'm seeing out here is just me. It's just me.
You once said something about, I think I was asking about protection bubbles and kind of blocking and all this like defense. And I think you mentioned that that was like the beginning. You can go there, but it takes a lot of energy to constantly be on the defense. If but I'm remembering what you said, and this was long
Mm.
ago. And the next level was essentially where you're speaking of now. Like you're not trying to block any of it, but
Right,
I do,
right.
there's a little bit of self protection there. But it sounds like when you're solid in yourself, there's really not a need for that because it's not going to be. Is that, am I following?
Yeah, that this is this self-work um context of myself is more possible if my mind isn't lost in trying to protect myself or in an aura way from an intimidating person. If someone
Say it
walks in
again.
with an energy that could be seem like it's negative and affect me,
Mm.
if I'm imagining protecting myself from that, I can't think about how I might get tangled in owning my parts and relaxing me. So it doesn't stick to me. Shit only sticks if you're sticky. I
Nick, have
have
you ever
more to say
experienced
about
this?
that. It goes on and on, but go ahead.
Well,
I
what
was just going to draw Nick in. Go ahead.
I haven't experienced it. What I love though, as you're sharing, Jeremy, is bringing the life to like what I've only read. And so hearing you share shows your experience with it. And so I'm learning so much by listening to you. It's also illuminating in me the area of growth that I also would like to have within myself because a lot of what uh, my experience is in is more the cognition. And so as I'm hearing you share, I'm thinking like, wow, it's wonderful to hear someone share from an energetic perspective, something that you clearly work with and had been doing for years, and then seeing the difference on how I would talk about it. And so I'm just appreciating having something newly that I can absorb from how you're speaking to it. And it makes so much sense. It's like you're bringing to life what I've read. It's like having a music playlist is one thing to see it on paper, and then going to the orchestra to actually hear it played out is another. And that's what I feel like I'm getting right now is hearing it played out.
That's it's so generous of you, Just Nick.
Yeah, all good.
So
Thank you.
generous of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like cognitive stuff. I think what to think about with that is, I think we can catch that we're lost in a fight with people, and they have every right to be messed up. We can get that. We can like that can be something that we can value that. We can have some conviction about moving out of thinking another person's stuff is my job.
Powerful statement. And it takes a lot of ownership of each person owning their own process in that point. And yeah, really solidifying yourself and letting them do the same.
Yeah, and then it's totally okay to like one person came into my healing groups and they were showing off a bit. Um, like somebody has a problem that I summon demons. If I was to summon a demon on them, they would sure know about it. I use that capacity sparingly. And then later he starts talking about blood contracts and showing like sort of sharing that he does blood contracts. It's a dark form of witchcraft. And I go to him later. I was feeling fear. Is that the outcome you needed from me or wanted? Were you intending me to feel afraid? I think you could think about how much fear is in the room when you speak like that. That was my start in introducing a challenge and to face the energy head on, whether what's really happening. The guy wanted a charge of fear to get some power. It was intimidating to talk about that. He was getting off on the darkness, and I told him he couldn't come back to my classes as well. Please
That's
do not show up.
yeah. That's his own journey.
That's his
I see why you
journey.
would want the energy in your space, but he's
Yeah,
got his own stuff to deal with.
weeks later, I saw him at an event. He waved at me. He was really friendly to me. No big deal. I wasn't tangled.
Mm, yeah.
I would add it's certainly is a challenge for all of us, and some of the things that you shared. For example, the one this like imposing oneself on another. That's a challenge that I've personally faced, and it might have been the way I came about into this information, maybe because I didn't have mentors, and so I was processing this all myself. And although from the best intentions, you get this relief, you want everyone else to have it. I think a bigger part of it was for me to feel safe in the world. I needed everyone else to be okay, which I think attributes back more to my childhood and some of the situations I was in. And it was like, well, if I can have everyone else get this stuff and everyone else can be healed, then I'll be safe because there won't be that anger, that intimidation in the background. And it and it's taken a bit to get to a point to be just as where you said, that's their journey and that's okay. And then what I'm hearing is having that healthy boundary of your space. Okay, you're not welcome back, and that's okay too. Like you said, you weren't entangled in that. It wasn't affecting you, and you created that healthy space to preserve your energy. And that for people listening, that takes some practice. Sometimes when we share conversations like this and hear someone like yourself speak, and I see this even with clients that I coach, often what gets lost in that conversation is what went behind your journey to be able to say it like that. It's a lot of practice and cultivating self to get to that point. And I think it's a powerful place to be as well, and healthy to be able to preserve your energy in that way.
It sounds like you help them cognite, and you might ask them to develop a strategy to grow into a stronger pattern. You're helping them build a new groove in their brain.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. New mapping. That's actually one of the ways I explain it. Like I said, that new groove. I look at it as there's two ways that I use to explain it. One is like if you walk through an open field of grass, the first time you walk through it, there's no path there. Yeah, if you continue to walk through that over and over again, pretty soon you have a trail, and then there's dirt, and then there's no grass, and you have this dirt path you see that has been walked. And that's one of the ways that I share to help people understand the neuroplasticity of the brain. And when we're doing new mapping, well, it takes repetition, and after a while, you have a new pattern built, and
Mm-hmm.
then it doesn't take as much effort as when you first started practicing it because the path is laid out.
And I think people need tangible steps. Sorry if I interrupted, Jeremy.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, that's really good work. So you build a new path in your brain somewhere. Let's say it's I deserve, an I deserve path. And the I don't deserve path could be connected with scarce resources in childhood and intimidation around resources. Don't ask for anything because we don't have anything, and don't think in terms of possibility because they aren't here, kid. That brain, that lower path is there. You build the new path, and it then with enough practice, it has energy behind it. It starts to lift, and then it can grow into the aura, become a stable energy pattern as well. So it's what's ever in the brain is electromagnetic energy moving through new synaptic gaps, and that's new flows in the brain. The I deserve pattern has strength. It has vital energy in it. So it's a thought that has powerful energy. And then the body is lifted with a well-practiced groove. So that can be an encouraging context for shifting thinking, and then committing to a next level, like making sure the I deserve comes to life, feels alive, and building relationships to what the I deserve space is. Like for me, I was in art school. I struggled with poverty, and I actually had a romance about it. I had a poetic life. I was a creative in many ways, facilitated by poverty. I had rich peers. They were like wealthy because it was a private art school, but they just didn't know how to scrap. They just didn't know how to make stuff out of the garbage can. Like, hey, I aced those classes, but
The class of life.
but now that I learned about the class of life, and now I have, like, I won't mention their names, but my friends are millionaires. We talk about the meaning of life. It works together just fine. Having money and being poetic and being alive and having meaning and having money, they get along just fine. After 30 some years of practicing a new groove in my brain, I'm so happy to share and so grateful.
I have a curiosity around what you said.
Sure.
So a lot of times we talk about coming home to the self, and I had an interesting conversation today about this concept. And so I'm curious if those statements were never made to your child self, would the abundance groove or I deserve groove already have been there firmly? Because that's inherently who you are. And everyone's might be different. Maybe some people, didn't have the same groove, but the core of who you are was probably, my thought, maybe I'm asking the question, answering it at the same time. It may have already all been there, even though we're essentially relearning or learning these things for the first time, making the new groove or the new pathway. However, if all the many traumas or traumas throughout a lifetime did not occur, would we have to really relearn, or are we just really coming home to ourselves anyway?
Let's let Nick go at that first.
Go, Nick.
I love that question, and I think you did provide an answer as you were asking. I would say that it is already there, and this coming back home is coming back to where we were before our energy field got disrupted, or before the traumas happened, or before the wounds happened. It's what, if you look at children, I think one of the best teachers in the world are the elderly on the older side of life, because they have that experience. And so as you get close to that, you tend to come face to face with mortality, and you have these awakenings. But then the very young. And so if you talk to those that have lived life, there's going to be a consistency there. And if you watch those that are just coming into life, there's going to be a consistency there. And when you watch a child, children naturally are exploring. And it's until somebody tells them, no, don't do that, or no, don't go there, or they get, smacked on the hand, or they're, whether it's protected or overreaction, until they're halted, a child will just go. We all do that. We go and explore, and there's no such thing as lacking. You might even have to give a child to not take something in the store because they don't realize you have to pay for that. To them, it's just there. Why? How can I not have this thing? It's there. I grab it. I want it. And so we're learning these structures, these rails that we put around ourselves. And then when we get wounded by certain things, where part of our psyche gets frozen in that point. And then from an energy sense, we have this holdup of negative energy that gets created, that's usually not released, because most children aren't taught how to process and release that. And so, yeah, I think it is there. I think it is there naturally. Until we get hurt by the hot stove, we're going to touch the hot stove without a second thought until we get hurt by it.
Yeah, well said. It's a lot of context. Using the sense of children is an amazing way to go at it. Because children have a natural innocence, and as you say, abundance. They're not taught there isn't enough. But when they're born, they're taught by this world to believe certain things. Are taught by their family or peers, culture, authorities, and I feel like doing very deliberate work on the beliefs and then walking through like what abundance is and then knowing how to realign to it. I think that's very good work. I do tons of that. I kind of think of it as one ray of the light. I got an image of a deal aura behind me here with a little human body in the middle of it. I think of like one ray as one aspect of who we are, our true self. So one ray of me is abundant, naturally abundant, effortlessly abundant. The other ray of me is divine knowing or infinite love, or we have these many rays. I think there is also a place for just discovering being directly. It has all those rays in it, and it can sort of program your whole being, where all these different things are taught, maybe in a quantum way. I like that strategy as well. So the way I know Reiki or the way I teach Reiki has to do with doing a simple blessing, and there's this capacity to discover a life, and it can be a blessing that introduces high quality vibration to the body, and it goes into remembrance of the natural state. So these capacities can also just show up naturally, just kind of come up out of discovering who you are. Like just you discover who you are, and all of a sudden that you're naturally abundant, you're naturally brilliant. It's just part of your divinity. And that can happen too. I do both. I have a more pedestrian process for certain areas of myself that need deliberate work. But one of my tools is to go to gong work as well, or crystal singing bowls or sound work, just to hang out in vibration. Peace has in it intelligence, joy, and the many rays in it. So in that it a way can develop that's less linear than learning about abundance and then learning about having brilliant skill, and then realigning to these many traits in specific ways. I like doing that work, and I'm really good at that too. But that's one thing I would say to this.
I think you have a great visual for that, Nick, on your website, like the hierarchy with its colored with all of the feelings.
The is it still up there? Are you referring to the map of consciousness?
Probably. It's like you're able to put it into like context and words, where Jeremy has a great way of drawing it and explaining it on a tangible level. So it's nice the way the two of you work.
You're after my heart. You like David Hawkins too?
Oh, I've done a lot of studying. I just didn't want to go too long on my intro. I've gone through so many people. Yeah, David R. Hawkins. That's where I learned about the map of consciousness.
Oh.
And then after that, I read a book called Frequency, which got more into energy, and then Power versus Force. I didn't have mentors, so I learned through these authors, these other teachers. So that was my source. Uh, yeah, that's a big one, actually. Worth noting. That is, I can't emphasize that map enough. And even clients that have worked with me long term, I will still go back to that map and work on people being able to calibrate where they are in their state of mind and consciousness, and recognizing how that is the foundation for how we show up in the world. And then what I have found, and I guide people to do, is there's this inner experience to be able to shift that state. And so the more you can recognize when you're in your lower mind, and then you can do some calibration to realize what acceptance feels like. People ask, like, what does it actually feel like? What does love as an experience feel like, not as an emotion? And I don't see the two as the same. There's love as the experience, and then there's the emotion we create. And the more that we can understand what that experience feels like, the sensation of it, the perception of it, the easier it is to lift ourselves back to it when we find ourselves falling within the lower mind. And then you can move energy up and out. And that's one of the ways that I teach people to process. You're feeling anger? Okay, great. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Now shift that up to love. And then if you look at that same thing or person or subject matter that caused anger, how do you see it now? Well, now you have an option. Now, which way do you want to maintain your perception and vibration? Because now when you have two options, you have a choice. And I also go by the belief that a healthy mind doesn't choose to harm itself. So are you benefiting from this lower vibration? And so if not, we can bring it up. So that's a little that. Also, if I may, I also wanted to circle back to Lindsay's question. How do you get people to see the value of this? Because I find it's difficult because we can't see it. And I like to quote that says, I don't know who said it. I didn't author this verse. It's out there. Make time for, if you don't make time for your health, you'll be forced to make time for your sickness. And there's more and more research that's bringing into light that we can measure much easier now that shows the correlation between a healthy state of mind and having a healthy body, which we can tangibly see, as opposed to having lower energy, having stagnant emotions, having a negative and poor state of mind, and where these physical ailments arise from. And you can also see that in studies of recovery. When people get sick, when people are injured, there's a correlation to have a positive mindset to better recovery as opposed to negative mindset and a negative. And similar like smoking a cigarette. You're not going to smoke a cigarette one day and have lung cancer the next. Over time, though, it drastically increases the likelihood. Well, when you have these lower negative states of mind, when you have this repression, when you have this stored negative energy, if you don't have a clear system, it is going to cause ailments physically. It's also going to cause a lot of turmoil in relationships. You'll find a struggle of having healthy and happy relationships. That all comes back to our energy system. And so that's where I think people can find value in doing this work.
I loved hearing everything you said, Nick. It's so excellent to hear all the detail work you're able to help people into, like just that cognite. What's the vibration in this thought compared to this thought? That's very good work. And how to value this. I think only every time someone hits a rock bottom of some sort, only every time, like the need for something better comes through a crisis, depression, or you know, some form of tragedy. For me, when I get quieter or when I have more contact with these energies that I am, or I just have a better life, my rock bottom isn't as rock bottom anymore. I notice it more quickly. I notice I'm off more quickly.
Yeah.
So being quiet or being present with yourself or just having a less impulsive lifestyle can make it so that your rock bottom isn't as low. You kind of go, oh, I need a correction on something here. And you know what low is, where, sometimes just being courageous is kind of low for me. Being a loving person starts to feel more like power, compared to courage to me. So that's one thing that I think about. When you spoke to Dr. David Hawkins' chart, I really value the generosity I get from that material, because when someone's moving from shame to guilt, from grief to from shame to grief to guilt to fear, like they're moving up. They move to desire and pride and anger is in there. I think about like moving from anger to pride to courage. Like I think that in that context, sometimes I point people to change that anger to courage. Think about a courageous way of embodying, acting. Like with my friend, I spoke to him about the fear I felt and the fear that other people probably felt. I courageously spoke. But I also had love in my heart. But I think a lot about courage when I'm dealing with my anger or my outrage, and it feels better. And I need to feel better. I think we all do, and I think this work we're doing tonight is excellent. I'm so happy to be here. I do have to wrap it up for
Yeah.
me. Is there a way you can help me exit, or are we gonna be
We can
close?
wrap it up with the three of us. If there's something else you want to add there, Nick, too, before we kind of close up for the evening.
Yeah, what came to mind that I think would be a good close up as a final thought. I'm not sure. I've got once upon a time I watched something that did that, so we do a final thought, and that can wrap us up. Uh, and I can share my final thought is from being here and meeting someone new and who's been in the space much longer than I. My final thought is surround yourself with people that have more experience in the area you wish to grow in, and you will prosper.
That relates to your initial comment on networking, actually.
Yes.
Funny
I,
how it
I
comes full circle.
I would like to add a similar last thought. If you have something that you prospered into and you really want to keep it, find a way to give it away.
I like
Coming
that.
directly from the mentor himself. Sorry, go ahead.
That's something I think a lot about. I feel like I had to put my ego in check over and over again on being advanced, at some points in my journey. And I realized the isolation ego has. I think it's profound to me. It's so painful to get stuck in it, even for a moment in some ways. Um, just I changed my attitude about where the masses are at. Can I appreciate where everybody's at and just energize them, for where they're at. They don't have to be advanced spiritually or have this love of spirituality or enlightenment. For me to sit with them and appreciate them. That's one of the things I've worked at.
That goes back to presence, it sounds like, being
Yeah.
present with them
Yeah.
where they are.
Yeah. Yes. And I think in a lot of things, like when I used to take tango, I hung out with the people that practiced all the time, and I realized how aggravated they were, how few people did great tango. Dance culture could be like this. Art culture could be like this, and spiritual community can be like this. But I would say that that's the one place it shouldn't happen.
Okay, that was great, both of you. I think you make a good point, and it actually kind of is completely related to this was just a spark that came when I was talking with you, Nick, that the two of you would be great to meet each other. I don't know what it was, but there's a reason, of course. And now I see that something has come of it, which is brings huge joy to my heart. And I think there's so much more of that can be there, and it's about giving back as well. I mean, how can the two of you learn from each other? And I do think you both kind of came to this, and it was something that I said at one point about being around the energy. So there is a piece of being around other people and learning from them, that going back and taking those skills to society and meeting people where they're at, and really saying, "Oh, I really honor where you are today. I remember when I was there once," and then helping them through that, because really it only takes one person to help someone, pull them out from wherever they are, and or one comment. So, any other final thoughts?
Well, you just spoke to the whole process. Be with high quality people. I keep holy company, and you both kept me on my toes tonight. I really needed that. I really need that. I'm so impressed by both of you. Thank you so much. And And yeah, it's just like whatever I'm growing into, I should give myself time with the highest quality people I can find, and then ask myself the right questions. How can I embody it completely? And that means every person I know is treated equally from a new attitude, you know.
Good
So
point.
Amazing. Well, I know that, Jeremy has to go. I think this was a great wrap up and completion to a great conversation.
thank you so much, friends.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you all very much. And with that, we
Thank
are off.
you.